just press the record button. So let us begin. And let's talk about relative pronouns. Okay, so what are relative pronouns? In English, the relative pronouns are who, whom, that, which, and whose. One more time. Who, whom, that, which, and whose. Those are our relative pronouns in English. Now, you'll notice some of them, for example, and if I could get my pen, you'll notice some of them like this one and this one, and we also use this one. Sometimes we use these underlined pronouns for questions, don't we? Like who is the Greek professor? Or which of these belong to you? Or whose does this teddy bear belong to? You know, so these particular pronouns that I've underlined we could use as for questions, but I want us to know that when we use them for questions, they're used differently. They have a different purpose. They're known as interrogative pronouns, okay? So when we see who, which, and whose, specifically, these are relative pronouns. They are not interrogative pronouns. They're not used for questions, okay? So they are different. Even though these words are the same, they are used differently because their function is different, all right? These relative pronouns always refer to nouns or noun phrases. They always refer to nouns or noun phrases. Okay? They also introduce relative clauses, hence the name. Okay? That's probably their main function, especially in Greek. Their main function is to introduce relative clauses. And what a relative clause is basically this. You know how adjectives describe nouns? Like the terrible twos, or the strong man, or the delicious meal. You know, we use words as adjectives to describe or modify nouns. What a relative clause is, it does the same thing as an adjective, but you can use a sentence now to describe a noun. That's what a relative clause is. A relative clause describes or modifies a noun by using a sentence. And I'll give you the technical definition now of a relative clause, which is this: a group of words that contain a subject and a verb. That's the clause part, okay? So whenever I say clause, a clause is a group of words that contain a subject and a verb, and then the purpose of this clause, which is the relative part, is to modify a noun, okay? So one more time, it's a group of words that contain a subject and a verb that modify a noun. Okay, so the next thing I'll show you is actually an example of a relative clause in English, okay? So the next thing, can I continue on actually? Are we good? Thumbs up? Okay, cool. So the next thing that I want to talk about is what a relative clause is. So, alrighty. So here's the sentence that I'm going to write. And I misspelled disciple. Look at that. Sorry for my misspelling. The disciple whom Jesus loved ate next to him. Okay? So what is the relative clause here? The relative clause is whom Jesus loved, okay? So that is your relative clause. How do I know that it's a relative clause? Well, this word right here gives me the clue. This is a relative pronoun, okay? All right, whom Jesus loved. The clause aspect, we have the verb here and a subject of the verb there, okay? So like I said, it is a clause that modifies a noun. So the question is, what noun is it modifying? It is modifying disciple. So this relative clause is giving us more detail of who the disciple is. It's not just any ordinary disciple. It is the one whom Jesus loved. Okay? So that's how relative clauses work. All right? Like I said, you can use simple sentences or you can use sentences now to modify or describe nouns. And that's what we have here. Any questions about the relative clause? Okay, so then let me continue on with our presentation or our lecture slides. So in regards to the Greek forms of relative pronouns, they are the noun endings of the first and second declensions, okay? And that's what makes them really easy to identify. So one more time, they are the noun endings of the first and second declension. And you'll notice with the parentheses that I have in my presentation, which I have not showed you guys, so
Professor,
I apologize.
I don't see your slide.
You're absolutely right. So thank you for bringing that up. And so one more time, just to reinforce our learning. The relative pronouns, they are the noun endings of the first and second declension. The noun endings of the first and second declension. With the first being the feminine gender and the second being the masculine and neuter. Okay? Another key marker of the relative pronouns is that each form has a rough breathing. Each form has a rough breathing. So every form you pronounce with an H in front of it. All right? So those are the two major clues on when identifying relative pronouns. One, they're simply the noun endings of the first and second declension. And two, they have the rough breathing. Excuse me. Okay, and so my next slide will actually be a chart of the relative pronouns. May I continue on with the next slide? All right, excellent. So here are the relative pronouns, all right? So as I shared with you before, when you look at the masculine and the neuter, all they are, where's my pen? There you are. Okay, so all they are, like I said, they're just the second declension endings, okay? And then for the feminine, it is the first declension endings. And then the biggest clue, I shouldn't say the biggest, that's the biggest clue. The second clue are these rough breathings right here, okay? So, just to reiterate the fact, one of the greatest advantages that you guys can attain is really to memorize the first and second declensions because of how many times you see them over and over again with these different pronouns, the adjectives, and these certain forms. Like I said, I haven't fully grasped the entire third declension, but that's okay because really majority of the words that we see in the New Testament text follow the first and second declension. And so, so if I do not recognize a noun or an adjective, in my mind I would say, oh, it's definitely third. So let me think about this more, or let me find it in a reference sheet or something. And so, so I would highly recommend, if you have time, to just memorize these endings. And I know that you might be saying, but it doesn't click for me. I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe some of you have already memorized them and you just don't see the connection yet. Just consistently work on it. You will get that connection. You will get that connection. I assure you. It does come much later. It came much later for me, but you will definitely get it if you consistently do it and consistently practice it. Okay? But just one more time in conclusion, what the relative pronouns are they are basically the endings of the first and second declension. Okay? Any questions?
Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Tammy.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. Now, please forgive me for not quite getting it, but are you saying that chart, those are the actual pronouns, or those are the endings of the word?
Yes, good question, Tammy. These are the actual pronouns. And basically, what they are, in essence, even though they are the actual pronouns, what they are, in essence, are the first and second declension endings.
Professor, can I ask you a question?
Sure, go ahead, Brianna.
So I'm trying to wrap my head around this too. So
Okay.
whenever these right here, when these are added to a word, is that what makes it a relative pronoun? Is that what I'm understanding?
No. I'm glad that you're thinking that way. That's really good thinking. But they are not. You'll see them by themselves. These words will be seen by themselves, and that is the relative pronoun. So.
Okay.
Good question, though. Very good question. So going back to what Brianna was asking, you will not see these words attached to anything. We're not in Hebrew yet. That's what's going to happen in Hebrew, unfortunately. These are separate words. You'll see them by themselves in text. And so, so yeah. All I'm saying, though, in regards to what they look like, that's all. That's what I wish to convey. They are pretty much, in essence, the first and second declension endings. That's it. You don't add anything else to it. That's what they are. Any other questions? Oh, yes, Joseph. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joseph.
I was wondering on the breathing marker with the bow over it, is that so?
That doesn't in the way that I read the text, that does not affect it. So you can really ignore that specific marker. What it does, it's known as a circumflex. It's an accent mark, but it does not affect the reading of it. So in this case, if I go back to the genitive, the genitive section and the dative, as I see, it's just pronounced as who. That omicron upsilon, who, haste, ho, hey, hoist, and so forth. So that has no effect on it. Excellent questions, you guys. Very good. Alrighty, may I continue on, or do you guys still need time? Brianna says yes. Patricia says yes. Anyone else? Okay, so then let me continue on. And like it is on our Smoodle, so if you need to return back to it on a later date, you can definitely open it on Smoodle. Okay. So finally, in regards to nouns, let's talk about the interrogative and indefinite pronouns. The interrogative and definite pronouns. What are interrogative pronouns? They're, like I said before, in the relative pronouns, they're basically used in questions. They are pronouns that are used in questions. And the three interrogative pronouns that we have in English are who, what, and why. Who, what, and why. Okay? Those are our interrogative pronouns. Now, the indefinite pronouns, they refer to non-specific nouns. For example, you can convey these indefinite pronouns as someone or something, a certain one or a certain thing. Okay, so those are indefinite. They're undefined. They're very vague. Another way of saying it. So they refer to non-specific nouns. Now, all the pronouns to this point I've showed you, they follow the first declension and the second declension, right? First declension for feminine, second declension for masculine, and neuter. This one is the different one, okay? Because the interrogative and the indefinite pronoun follow third declension forms, unfortunately, okay? So the third declension form is followed with the interrogative and the indefinite pronoun. And unfortunately, what that means is this, that the it means that the masculine and feminine are the same. They're identical. They are identical. There's no specific one for the gender, okay? So the masculine and feminine forms are the same, all right? Now, some of you might be asking, why is Professor Yu combining the interrogative and the indefinite pronoun together? That's an excellent question, you guys, and so I'm going to answer that. And the reason why I do that is because in Greek, the wording, the way that it's spelled, the forms are identical, okay? The interrogative and the indefinite in regards to the spelling are the same. They're the same word, okay? I don't have that in my notes, but I want you guys to know that the interrogative and the indefinite pronoun are the same word. That's what they are. It's the same word, okay? The question is, well, what is the difference? Is there a difference? And of course there's a difference. It's very subtle, though. It's very subtle, and I want to emphasize that. Here's the difference, you guys. So even though they're all identical in form, the interrogative is this. The accent is on the first syllable. the accent is on the first syllable, where the indefinite, the accent is on the second syllable if it persists. Okay? So that is the difference here. Like I said, the interrogative and the indefinite pronouns, they're spelled the same way. They are spelled the same way. The only difference is that the accent is on a different syllable. So for the interrogative, the accent is on the first. The indefinite, the accent is on the second. That is the difference. All right, so three major factors here that we need to consider. One, the third declension. These pronouns follow the third declension. Two, the interrogative and indefinite are spelled identically. And the third one is the difference is that the interrogative has the accent on the first syllable, while the indefinite has the accent on the second. Okay? Questions about that? Okay, so let me show you these forms.
Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
Professor?
Yes.
Sir, could you repeat those three major factors, please?
Yes, absolutely. So here are the three major factors. The interrogative indefinite pronoun, factor number one, they follow the third declension. The interrogative and definite pronouns follow the third declension. Number two are that number two is that the interrogative and indefinite pronouns are identical in spelling. They are identical in spelling. And three, the difference is that the interrogative has the accent on the first syllable and the indefinite has an accent on the second syllable. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay? So let me continue on, and I'm going to show you the interrogative pronouns first. All right? Here are our interrogative pronouns. So, like I told you guys, that it follows the third, why am I losing my mind? I told you guys it follows the third declension, okay? Therefore, you're unable to see the full stem in the nominative singular and the dative plural, okay? So the full stem for this word is this, tau, iota, nu. Tau, iota, nu. That is the full stem, okay? The full stem, one more time, is tau, iota, nu. Now, if we go back to the nominative or even the dative plural, we don't have the nu there anymore. We don't have the nu anymore. It drops, and all we have is the sigma of the noun ending. Why do we not have the nu there anymore? What is the nu that makes it disappear? What is it about the nu that makes it disappear? And raise your hand if you have the answer. Via webinar, I should say. Raise your hand via webinar if you have the answer. Yes, Patricia.
It is the dental.
It is a dental. Very good. Exactly. That's exactly right. And what do the dentals do when they see a sigma? They freak out. They freak out. It's like a first date, and they get chickened out. And so they run away, and then that's all we have by itself in its lonely self is the sigma. That's exactly right. Very good. Very good, Patricia. So the reason why we don't have the nu in the nominative singular or in the dative plural is because the nu disappears. The nu disappears because of the fact that it is a dental consonant, okay? And what are the dentals? They're stops. And so we talked about stops last week and how they behave with the sigma, okay? Any questions about that? So like I said, your stem for this word is tau iota nu. But because of the third declension pattern, you don't see that fully in the nominative singular and the dative plural forms. Okay? And then just one more time, notice the neuter nominative and the neuter accusative. This is a common behavior of the neuters, that the nominative accusative forms are they are identical. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now the next thing that I'm going to show you guys is the indefinite pronoun. Now, I know you guys are saying, hey, hold up, Professor Yu, I'm not done yet. It's okay. Just keep going because, like I said, the spelling is identical. The spelling is identical, right? And so I'm going to erase all these, the chicken scratch that I just did right now for a moment, and I just want to show you briefly the difference, okay? So this is the interrogative pronoun. Here are the indefinite pronouns, okay? So one more time. Interrogative, indefinite. The accent changes to the next syllable, okay? They're the exact same thing, but the accent changes, all right? So if you want to write down in your notes the indefinite, all you need to do is just write all this out, but have the accent on the second syllable. Now, if there's only one syllable, that means that for the indefinite, there's no accent there, okay? But like I said, they're identical. They're identical in spelling. The only difference is the accent, all right? Question?
You said the indefinite one again?
Yes, absolutely. Indefinite?
Oh, wait. Okay.
And then interrogative. Indefinite, interrogative. Any other questions? Indefinite, interrogative. I sound like an eye doctor right now. Indefinite, interrogative. Indefinite, interrogative. Okay? Yes, Joseph, go ahead.
I was going to ask I noticed on our worksheet, it had that word,
Okay, yes.
and my question is there always going to be a breather, an accent mark on these words?
That is correct. Yes, there will be. There will be an accent always on these words. Now, keep in mind, though, Joseph, here's the indefinite pronouns, right? Look at the nominative singular and the neuter singular. The nominative masculine, feminine singular, and the neuter. They're only one syllable, okay? So obviously they won't have an accent marker, right? But you'll notice on the other forms, more than one syllable, they do have an accent marker in the second syllable, okay? So you might see this in the New Testament text, right, without a marker. That should give you the clue that that is an indefinite pronoun, okay? Because going back to the interrogative, come on, mouse. There you go. Going back to the interrogative, there is an accent. Okay? Any other questions? No. Alrighty. Can I close my presentation and go and talk about verbs next, or do you need more time? Yes, no, maybe so.
I think we move on, Professor.
All right, thank you. So those are nouns and adjectives and pronouns, right? And like I said, I'm unable to cover all the different exceptions and so forth, and that's okay, because right now with the knowledge that I provide for you, compact that it is, dense as it is, you can recognize 60 to 75% of the New Testament because of it, you know, and so so that should be something to be excited about. So let's continue now into verbs. All right. All right, so let's continue on with verbs. And basically, I'm going to introduce the concept and the behavior of verbs first. Then we'll get into the forms. I'm not exactly sure how many forms we're going to get into this tonight, but I'm hoping to talk about majority of what we call the indicative form, okay? But before I even get into that, let's talk about how verbs behave and what information is conveyed from verbs, especially in the Greek, okay? So first and foremost, let's do a little review, some grammatical review. What is a verb? What is a verb, okay? A verb is a word that conveys action or a state of being, okay? They are words that convey action or a state of being, okay? Now there's two kinds of verbs. There are transitive verbs, and what that means is they take a direct object. They take a direct object. And there's intransitive verbs that do not take an object or direct object. One example of an intransitive verb is speak. Speak. I speak to the man, or I speak. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Scratch that. Don't use that as an example. What is an example of an intransitive? I just thought of it. Oh, I forgot it. I'll give you guys an example after break. But like I said, transitive verbs take a direct object. Intransitive verbs do not. All right, let me continue on, and let's talk about verbs in the Greek. And just ignore that for right now. I apologize for that. But Greek verbs are inflected! Exclamation point times 3. Just like nouns are inflected, meaning change, Greek verbs change as well, okay? And so the Greek verb can be broken up into 2 parts, just like nouns, right? The first part is the stem, which is part of the noun that remains the same, as well as the verb ending, which is the inflection or change of the verb, okay? So this behavior is very similar to the behavior of nouns, right? We had a noun stem, and then we also had its noun ending, okay? So similar to that, verbs do the same way in the Greek. But we actually see this in many other languages today. Spanish is a very good example of this. We have the stem, the verb stem, and then attached at the end of the verb stem is a verb ending, okay? Now there's other things that you can attach upon a stem. Like there's something known as an augment. An augment is something that you add before the stem, which will give us a clue what kind of tense it is and so forth. You can add prepositions to a verb, all right? There's a lot of things you can add in front of a stem as well. But basically, this is the common thing. You have a stem with its verb ending. Okay, let me continue on. If there's no objection for me to continue on, the next question we need to ask is, well, what do verbs convey? Okay, with these changes or inflections, also known as verb endings, with these changes, Greek verbs convey 5 things. They convey 5 things. The first thing that they convey that I want, and I actually want this in particular order, okay? So I want this in the specific order that I provided for you. We have tense, okay? It conveys something known as tense, okay? Then the next thing that it conveys is voice. Following voice is mood, and I'm going to go in detail explaining all these things, okay? So we have tense, voice, and mood. All right. Then we have person. And then finally, number, okay? So those are the 5 things that verbs convey in Greek. We actually see this also in other foreign languages today. One more time, like Spanish. Spanish does this. Italian does this. Portuguese does this. A lot of the Romantic languages do it. French does it. German does it. It's really, English is its rarity. English doesn't really, when you see a verb in English, you really don't see everything that's conveyed with that verb. But in other languages you do. And these are the things that are conveyed in verbs. Okay, questions about that? Okay, so then let's continue on. I'm going to talk about each of these in detail now. So the first thing that I want to talk about is tense. Okay? Now we understand tense in English. We understand tense in regards to time. Like when the action happened. Did it happen in the past tense? Did it happen present tense? Or did it happen in the future tense, right? However, especially nowadays, something kind of lost in regards, something lost through history in regards to tense or how we perceive tense. Because here's the thing, in Greek, tense expresses more than just time. It expresses more than just time, but also something known as aspect. Aspect, okay? And in reality, the way that Greeks understood tense back in the day, 2,000 years ago, they believed aspect had more priority over the time or when the verb actually occurred. So saying that aspect was first, then time was secondary, okay? So English, we have it the other way around, but in Greek, it was aspect first and then time. Now, what is aspect? Aspect is the way of viewing the action, the characteristic of the action, okay? The characteristic of the action. That is what aspect is. Aspect is a way of viewing the action. All right, now technically, you guys, there are 4 ways to see the action, 4 ways. But I'm not going to mention to you the 4th way because it is very rare in New Testament Greek, okay? I'm going to show you the 3, however, that are still common during the time of the New Testament. The first action aspect that I want to talk about is progressive, okay? It's known as progressive aspect. And what progressive aspect is, it's a continuous action. Continuous action, okay? So how do we convey continuous action in English? I am reading. That is how we convey continuous action in English. I am reading, meaning that you are in the process or the continuous action of reading. You're constantly doing it, all right? You just didn't happen to do it at one moment. You're doing it now. You're continually doing it right now, okay? Or you're continually doing it whatever time you've done it, okay? So that is progressive action or continuous action. Now, there's a form, or I shouldn't say form, but there's another aspect known as aorist aspect. Aorist, okay? Aorist simply happened. We don't know anything else about it. It just simply happened. So opposite of progressive, where the example for the progressive is I am reading, the aorist is I read. I read. We don't know how much he read. We don't know how continually he read. All we know is that he just read. That's it. It just simply happened. That's all we know about it. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so, because you said it simply happened, so would it be I read or I read, or could it be either?
It could be either. It could be either because both those examples that you just shared, Patricia, are based on time. Time. So I read, you just simply happen to do it in the past. I read, you happen to do it present. Okay? And again, we don't know anything else other than that.
Okay.
Okay? Cool beans indeed. Okay? Now, the third way, or the third aspect, is known as perfect. Okay? Perfect aspect. And what perfect is, well, perfect, there's a lot of debate of what the perfect is. And I'm just telling you what my teacher taught me. Perfect is action that is a result of completed action. What does that mean? Here's the best example. Here's the best example. We're all Christians here, hopefully, right? We're all Christians. I'll just take the benefit of the doubt that we're all Christians, right? And some of us have participated in the act of baptism, right? The act of baptism. But we also know that the act of baptism is a reflection of our salvation, right? That's what we call baptism. It is an outward reflection of something that's inside. So the best way that we say this is in regards to our salvation. So here's the example. I have been saved for 13 years. Okay? One more time. I have been saved for 13 years. Now, just ignore that 13 years part, but that phrase, I have been saved, okay? What does that really convey in English? What it's conveying is in the past, you did something. You made a choice, right? You asked Jesus Christ to save you, and from that point till this point, you have been saved, okay? So you had this action in the past, but it's still being experienced right now. You know, that is the best way that I can explain the perfect, okay? So it is this idea that there was a completed action either whenever time, but we're still experiencing that action right now. Questions about that? Okay, so let me make this into an analogy. Imagine your neighborhood has an annual parade, okay? Like the 4th of July parade, right? Here's what the progressive looks like. You're out on Main Street watching the parade go by. Okay, you're out on Main Street watching the parade go by, okay? You take your smartphone out and you take a video, you record it on video, the parade, okay? And you see all the great things. You see all the veterans walking by. You see like the baton twirlers walking by. You see little kids playing with dazzlers walking by, and so forth. That is the progressive. Okay, so the camera, the video camera on your smartphone, viewing the things walking by, that is progressive action. Okay? Aorist, what is aorist? Same idea, same parade, you're still on Main Street, and it's like, man, I got to take a pic, I want to video this, I want to record video of this, and you notice your battery's about to die. I was like, oh no, I don't have time to watch a video of this. What am I going to do? I'm just going to simply take a picture and post it on Facebook, right? So aorist is simply just take a picture of that moment. So at that moment you saw elephants, or at that moment you saw veterans saluting, or at that moment you saw flag bearers or something like that. That is aorist. That particular moment, it happened, okay? So progressive is the video camera, aorist is the photo camera. What is perfect? Perfect is basically you get a call from the local radio and say, hey, we would like, you have won our contest where you can ride up on a blimp to see the entire parade, right? And so what perfect is you see the beginning of the parade when it started all the way to the end as it ends. That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay? So that's the analogy that was taught to us on how these aspects work. All right? Questions about aspect? Yes, Patricia.
Can you just repeat the last thing you said, the last sentence?
Okay, yes. So perfect is this. So imagine you get a phone call before the parade starts, right? And you won the competition, or you won the contest at the local radio station. He says, hey, you've got the chance to ride on a blimp to see the entire parade in bird's eye view, okay? So you're on the blimp, and basically you get to see from the very beginning when the parade starts and keeps on going until it ends. That, in essence, is what the perfect is. You see the entire parade in action. All right? Any other questions? All right, so that's tense. Let's talk about voice, how the verb and subject relate to one another. That is voice, okay? So voice is how the verb and subject relate to one another. And there's specifically 3 voices, you guys, only 3. And there's only 3, I should say, okay? There's no other voices than these. There's only 3 voices. You have active voice. And the active voice is when the subject is doing the action. Simon kicks the ball. Gavin reads the book. Morgan sees the tree. That is when the subject is doing the action. Okay? That is active voice. The next voice is middle, when the subject is doing action upon itself. So, let's see. Brianna dresses herself, or Simon washes himself, okay? The action is being acted upon the subject, or the subject is doing the action upon itself, okay? James looks at himself in the mirror, right? The action is referring back to the subject. That is middle voice. Okay? And then the third voice is passive voice. Not past voice, but passive voice, where basically the subject is being acted upon. Jesus was baptized by John. Okay? Who's really doing the action here of baptizing? It's John, isn't it? John is the baptizer, right? Jesus is simply receiving that action. He's being acted upon, okay? So those are the 3 voices: active, middle, and passive. Any questions about the voices? All right, then I'm going to continue on. The next thing that we talk about when what verbs convey is mood. We'll talk about mood next. All right? Mood is how the verb relates to reality. Now, I don't want to get all existential here, right? This is grammatical reality, the way that it works within this realm of understanding, okay? And in grammar, especially Greek grammar, there's 4 realities, okay? So the first reality is known as the indicative mood, okay? This reality or this realm is certainty and time. Okay? So when the action is happening, it actually happened, This is indicative, which, by the way, I'm going to introduce you the forms of the indicative, or some of the forms of the indicative today, okay? But indicative has to do with certainty and time, all right? And as a matter of fact, I don't have this in my notes, so please write this down. In regards to time, it is only in the indicative mood time is being conveyed, only in the indicative. In the other moods, they don't really convey time. They do not convey time, okay? So it's only in the indicative mood that time is really conveyed. The other moods, not so much. Okay, the next mood, and they're not in particular order this time, they're not in particular order. So the next mood is known as the subjunctive mood. Subjunctive mood, okay? Subjunctive mood is potentiality. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. That's the subjunctive mood, okay? I may or may not study Greek tonight. It's potentiality, that's subjective, okay? If I order pizza today, then I'll study Greek tonight. You know, that's also subjunctive. It depends on the first statement in order for the second statement to happen. But even then, we're not sure if the person's going to order pizza or not. So that's potentiality. It hasn't happened yet. We're not sure if it's going to happen yet. And that is subjunctive. Okay? Would, should, could, those words convey subjunctive. If something happens, then this would happen. Those if-then statements, that conveys subjunctive. May or may not convey subjunctive. So that's all this reality. It's the potentiality of it. It could or could not happen. The following subjunctive, it's imperative. Imperative is commanded action. Study Greek. Read your textbook. Do your homework. Those are all commanded action. Commanded action. Okay? And the fourth one, which is very rare, we don't see the fourth one a whole lot, okay? So I'm not going to teach you the fourth one, but I just want to share with you the four different moods. The fourth one is known as optative mood. Optative mood. And optative conveys improbability or wish. That's the mood of the optative. The only example that I know of in the New Testament is when Paul uses it. Paul uses the optative. And he uses it in Romans where it's like, so what does this mean? Does it mean that the law is sin? Let it not be so, or may it not be. That phrase, may it not be, or let it not be so, that is the optative. So it's really difficult to explain because the optative can get confused with the subjunctive. That's why I don't even want to mess with it. But yeah, those are the four different moods of Greek: indicative, subjunctive, imperative, and optative. Now, another thing that verbs do, and you don't have to write this down on your notes yet because we'll talk about them next week. Another thing that verbs do is that they can change their function, meaning that they don't have to be pure action verbs. What they can do is they can become adjectives, and they also can become nouns. And so they're known as verbal adjectives and verbal nouns, or also known as participles and infinitives. We'll talk more about that next week. But verbs can be changed in many different ways for whatever purpose that you need them to be when you write and so forth. Okay? So like I said, don't worry about that now, but just know that verbs can act like adjectives, and they can also act like nouns if need be. Okay? Okay, so those are the moods. The next slide is persons. Persons, okay? Person denotes the subject of the verb. It basically conveys who's doing the action. That's what it does. And there's three types of persons. Okay? There's first person, where the subject is speaking. And what is first person? Go back to the personal pronouns. Okay? That's the same kind of understanding. So first person is I, or we, us, me. Okay? So that is first person, I or we. Second person is when the subject is being spoken to. You do this, you all do that. Okay? So the second person is the pronoun you, Y-O-U. Okay? And then finally, the last person is the third person. Third person. So it's some other person or thing that's doing the action. He, she, it, they, the neighbor's dog, the student, Charles Barkley. Those are all third person nouns. But that verb also conveys that as well. Okay, so that's person. And then finally, the last thing that the verb conveys is number. And number is probably the simplest of all the five. It's how much the subject is doing the action. How much of it is there? So there's the singular or plural. So there's either one subject that's doing the action, or there's more than one subject that's doing the action. Hence singular and plural. Okay? So just like in regards to nouns, if there's more than one noun, we say if it's singular or plural, right? So it's the same idea here with the verbs. Okay, now, so the five things that the verb conveys, what are they? They are tense, voice, mood, person, and number. Tense, voice, mood, person, and number. Okay? Now, there's something known as parsing. Parsing. P-A-R-S-I-N-G. Parsing. Okay? Or to parse a word. P-A-R-S-E. Okay? What parsing is you break it down into its fundamental things, right? And so in regards to verbs, in your homework, you're going to be asked to parse verbs, And what that means is you're going to provide me these 5 bits of information. You're going to tell me tense, voice, mood, person, and number, okay? And I'll show you how to do that when we go through the examples, okay? But that's what parsing means. So one more time. Parsing tells me you're going to give me the tense, voice, mood, person, and number of a verb. Yes, Tony, go ahead.
Every verb has these 5 things in it.
Every verb has at least these 5 things in it. That's correct. A pure verb, I should say. A pure verb should have these 5 things in it.
It doesn't have to have all of them.
Sometimes it won't, and I'll bring up the ones that don't. But especially for the indicative that we're going to talk about right now, they have it. They have it. All 5. Good question, by the way. Anyone else? Okay, if there's no other questions, our hour and a half is up, so let's take our 30-minute break, and then we'll reconvene, okay? So have a 30-minute break, everybody. Okay, so lambda upsilon is our stem, okay? And I also need to tell you guys, and I apologize for this, what we're going to do here, where are you, mouse? Oh, there you are. Okay, so the word here, the verb system that we're going to do is the present active indicative. Okay? So what does that mean, present active indicative? It means this. The tense of it, it's happening right now. Because remember, that's the indicative mood, isn't it? The indicative mood conveys certainty and time, right? So the tense here is, it's happening right now. It's happening right now, okay? Active, that is the voice. So the voice suggests then it's that the subject is doing the action. Okay? So by knowing that it's present active indicative, we know that it's happening within present time, okay? And that the action is being done by the subject. All right? So that's this form that I'm teaching you guys right now. It's the present active indicative. Okay? So, as I shared again, luo, the stem is lambda upsilon. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine now. You're just going in and out there for a little bit.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that. So, so let me just say that one more time then. The present active indicative, what does that mean? It means that it's happening right now in time and that the subject is doing the action. Okay? Happening right now in time, and the subject is doing the action. And in this case, the stem is lambda upsilon. Lambda upsilon. Okay?
Professor?
Yes, go ahead.
Which of the 5 is the present under?
It is, in regards to moods, is that what you're asking?
I don't see a present in moods.
Oh, okay. Okay, so let me then go 2 steps back. I'm going to talk about the indicative right now. I'm going to talk about the indicative mood. And the present is specifically under 2. It's specifically under 2. It's under the progressive action aspect as well as the aorist. Okay? I know. It's, okay, so let me go back to tense. There's 3 tenses that I told you guys, right? 3 tenses. Those are the progressive, the aorist, and the perfect, right? Okay? The present is really conveying time with a progressive action or an aorist action, where it's really the choice of the translator to translate it either way. It's that indefinite. Okay? So it's present time, but it can be conveyed progressive action or aorist action. Okay? Is there any confusion with that? Do I need to explain it again?
Yes, Professor.
Okay, cool. So, I'm sorry, say that again?
Explain it a different way. Reword it, maybe.
Okay, so let's talk about tense. Tense. Remember how I told you that with tense, it's really more about the aspect of the verb rather than the time of the verb, right? And those three aspects are progressive, aorist, and perfect. Okay? The next thing that I want to say is we're in the indicative mood right now. We're the indicative mood. And what is the indicative mood all about? It's all about certainty and time. Time. Okay? So in this particular mood, the indicative mood, it's emphasizing time more so than anything else. Okay? So that being said, for the indicative mood specifically, the tense is conveying time. Okay? So in the indicative mood, the tense is conveying time. That's the only mood that really does that. Okay? So now what is the aspect of the present active indicative? Unfortunately, it can be one or the other. It can be either progressive or aorist. That's what makes the present vague, unfortunately. Okay? But in regards to translation, you can just translate it simply. It just simply happened. Like, for example, I destroy. I destroy. Okay? But sad to say, because of its vagueness, another way of saying it is I am destroying. So one more time, the indicative conveys time. And that's why for this one, for this particular mood, you're going to have the tense convey time more often than not. How is that? Still confused?
Confusing subject.
Okay. Then here's what I'm going to say. So just for the sake of safety, we're just going to simply, the aspect of the present active indicative is aorist. That's the aspect. It just simply happened. Okay? But in this case, in regards to time, it simply happened present time. Okay? So I read a book or I eat lunch. Okay? So that's how we should understand the present active indicative. Okay? All right. So that being said, let's go back to the stem. Let's go back to the stem with lambda upsilon. That is our stem. Okay? So I'm going to put the stem in these 6 boxes right now. Okay? All right, so once we do that, that's our stem for this verb. Now we need to know the noun endings. The noun endings, okay? Or I'm sorry, not the noun endings, the verb endings, okay? So the first person singular, the verb ending is simply an that's a N. Oh, that's a V. Sorry about that. The verb ending is omega. Luo. Omega. Okay? And in regards to lexical form, for verbs, the lexical form will always be present active indicative first person singular. Okay, so when you get into a dictionary, the lexical form is present active indicative first person singular.
Present active indicative first person singular?
That's correct. That is your lexical form for verbs. Okay? Your second person singular ending. Your second person singular ending is epsilon, iota, sigma. Lues. Your third person singular is epsilon, iota, lue. Now let's go to the plural side. Your first person plural is omicron, mu, epsilon, nu. Luamin. Second person plural is epsilon, tau, epsilon. Luete. And then finally, your third person plural is omicron, upsilon, sigma, iota. And that's a theta, so sorry about that. Omicron, upsilon, sigma, iota. Go ahead, Tony.
The verbs from the nouns.
I didn't catch that first part. Can you say that again?
How are we going to be able to distinguish between the verbs and the nouns?
In regards to vocabulary,
Yes.
basically the best way is to recognize these endings because these endings are very unique to verbs. There's only certain ones that would look like a noun, but definitely recognize these endings. And then the second thing is just vocabulary. Just go through a vocabulary list in a textbook or in a vocabulary sheet to recognize these verbs. Because the lexical form, keep in mind, the lexical form is always going to end with an omega. It's always going to end with an omega, which is actually rare in nouns, because noun lexical forms don't end in omega. Okay, so let me read them through for you guys, just to know how these sound and so forth. And if you wish to repeat after me, just go right ahead. So first person singular, I'm going to do the singular first, and then I'm going to do the plural. Luo. Lues. Lue. Luamin. Luete. Luusi. Luusi. Very good. Luusi. Very good. Excellent. Very good. Very good. You sound fantastic. Okay? So let me do another example in the present active indicative. And actually, I want us to work on it together. Okay? So I'm just going to delete all this. All right? The next one I'm going to give you is the word blepo. Beta, lambda, epsilon, pi, omega. Blepo. And blepo, you guys, means I see. Blepo. Okay? Blepo means I see. Now, if anyone just raise their hand via webinar to take a stab at it, someone tell me what the stem of this verb is. What would be the stem? James, go ahead, sir.
Would it be blep?
Very good, James. That's exactly right. James is saying that it is beta, lambda, epsilon, pi, blep. That is exactly right. That is the stem, okay? And so now I'm going to copy the stem and paste it in all these boxes, right? Okay, blep. That is the stem. Now, this omega, raise your hand to give me the answer. This omega, what person and number is this omega? Who said it? Don't say nominative. Nominative is a noun. It's used for nouns, okay? So the cases here don't matter because verbs don't have cases, or pure verbs don't have cases, okay? So let's take a moment. I know it's been habit, and that's good. That's great. But it's not a nominative here, but it's simply first singular. First singular. That's exactly right. So it is blepo, blepo, okay? Now I'm going to go out of order so that we can, so that we know and understand these different forms. Let's go across down. What do I need to add in the third person plural? Third person plural. Who said it?
Sigma. Third person plural?
Yes, third person plural. Anyone have it? If someone said it, I'm sorry. I didn't hear it. What do we add on the third person plural?
sigma, iota.
Beautiful. That's exactly right. Omicron, upsilon, sigma, iota. Excellent. Let's go up. Let's go first person plural. Who wants to do that one? And raise your hand via webinar if you want to try it out. All right, go for it, Patricia.
You would do the omicron, mu, epsilon, nu.
Very good. Blepomin. Excellent. Excellent. Let's go to second person singular. Who wants that? Who wants to do that one for me?
Is that second person singular?
Second person singular, yes.
Epsilon, iota, sigma.
Very good. Epsilon, iota, sigma. That's exactly right. And then we'll go across to the plural. Who wants to do the plural? James, go for it, sir.
Would it be epsilon, tau, epsilon?
Beautiful. That's exactly right. Epsilon, tau, epsilon. And then I'll just finish up with the third singular, epsilon, iota. Okay? Excellent. Good job, you guys. So let's read them down, all right? And then we'll continue on. So I'll do singular again first, and then plural. Blepo. Blepes. Blepe. Blepomin. Blepete. And blepusi. Oh, I'm sorry. Blepete. Blepete. And blepusi. Okay? So this means I see. Let's see. This means I see, you see, he, she, it, Charles Barkley sees, we see, you all see, the LA Lakers see. Okay? So that's how we use verbs. Okay? Questions about the present active indicative? Okay. So now there's usually a particular order with well, no, I won't say that yet. I won't say that yet. So let's go back to Luo. All right, I lose or destroy. Whoa. What? I'm sorry.
Can you repeat the I see, ice cream, you drink, we all drink for ice cream?
Sure, exactly. So, actually, let me get a highlighter for you guys here so that I can emphasize it. And come on, mouse, work for me. Where are you? Good. Okay, so this one, blepo, which means I see. Okay, so I see the sun setting. 2, blepes, you see a computer screen. Okay, that's blepes. Blepe, it's he, she, it sees, or Charles Barkley sees, you know. First person plural is we. Oh dear, I'm sorry. First person plural is blepomin, which is we see. We see the classroom empty. Okay. Blepete, you can say, you know, in the West Coast we don't make distinctions. You can say you see, but then other places in the United States you can say you all see, or y'all see, or you all see. Okay, that's blepete. All right. And then blepusi is they see, or the cats see, or the pack of French bulldogs see, you know. So yeah, it's they see.
Just want to lose.
No, blepo here means to see, to see. Luo means to lose. So I was going to do the next form for you guys. That's why I brought luo back, because luo is a really easy one to go through all these different paradigms and forms and stuff. Okay? All right, may I continue on? Yes, no, maybe so? Not yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Professor.
Cool. All right, so let's do now, so we just did the present active indicative form. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you guys the present middle passive indicative form, okay? Middle passive. Why do we call it the middle passive? Because this form that I'm going to show you guys right now is used for the middle voice as well as the passive voice. So they're identical. They're identical. Okay? So so just keep that in mind, that this form specifically, they're identical in form, the middle voice and the passive voice form. Okay? So that's why we call it the middle passive. And like I said, luo means to loose or to destroy. Just a tangent, in the book of Revelation, there's going to be like this demon angel thing coming out from the pit with like it has like a locust's body with the sting of a scorpion and the face of a lion and the crown of iron and so forth. And the angel or the demon, whatever it may be, that's leading this army is known as Apollyon. Apollyon, okay? Apollyon actually is a derivative of luo. And so literally Apollyon means destroyer. Destroyer. So that's where we get that name from. Apollyon means destroyer because it comes from this word, luo. Okay? So we're going to use luo again, and again we're going to start off with our stem because that doesn't change, right? So copy their stem, and I'm just going to paste everything. Boom, right there. Okay? So I'll let you guys do that. Okay? And then I'm going to go through each and every form. All right? So for the present middle passive indicative, okay, first person singular, it is Omicron, Mu, Alpha, Iota. And those are in English, so I apologize for that. Omicron, Mu, Alpha, Iota. All right? The second person singular form is an eta with a iota subscript. Okay? It is an eta with the iota subscript. Now, this is the one that gets people confused a lot. It still gets me confused a lot, especially if I don't know if the word is a verb or a noun. excuse me, the reason being is this ending we saw as a noun ending. And someone raise their hand and tell me what the case, gender, and number of this noun ending. What does this noun ending come from, if it is a noun ending? That Ada with the Yoda subscript looks like a particular noun ending. And so I'm looking for the case, gender, and number for that one. Someone from North Texas raised their hand, so go ahead.
Me? Is it dative, singular? It's
That's right.
Declension.
Yes. Very good.
Feminine.
Exactly. And so it looks like a dative, feminine, singular first declension word, doesn't it, if we don't know the verb. So we need to be careful with this one. And like I said, the only way to know it is just familiarity of vocabulary, which unfortunately we were unable to have time for. But we need to keep that in mind. Keep that in mind that sometimes it could be a verb, sometimes it could be a noun because of this. Okay? All right, so now continuing on with the third singular, it is epsilon, tau, alpha, iota. All right, plural, first person plural. Omicron, mu, epsilon, theta, alpha. All right, second person plural, epsilon sigma, theta epsilon. And then third person plural, what happened there? Where are you, mouse? There you are. Third person plural, omicron nu, tau, alpha, iota. I like how Gavin has the shadow distinction. He looks like Bruce Wayne ready to become Batman right now. Out to fight crime. You look good, Gavin. Okay, so let's go through and I'm going to read them to you. If you want, you can repeat after me, okay? So first person singular, you pronounce it as luamai, luamai. Good. Second, lue, lue. Luetai. Good. Let's do plural next. Luamitha. Lueste. It does, doesn't it? Very good observation. Luantai. Luantai. Okay? Good. So that is our present middle passive indicative. Okay? So like I said, this form is identical for the middle voice as well as the passive voice. So the way that we translate it, there's two ways. So for example, luamai. If we translate it with the middle voice, it is I destroy or I loose myself. Okay? That's how we translate it. Or for the second singular, you loose yourself or you destroy yourself. So that's how we do the middle. Passive is, again, what is the passive? It's when the action is, or when the subject is being acted upon, excuse me. So luamai, when we translate it as a passive, is I am being loosed or I am being destroyed. Okay? So I am being destroyed by this. I am being destroyed by Apollyon. I am being destroyed by The Rock. I am being destroyed by Charles Barkley. So that's how we translate it as a passive. Okay? So it can go either way depending on the context, but they are identical in form. Okay? Question about that? Okay. Yes, yes. I can hang on. Or yes, I can hear you.
Professor, you're gone. Professor, you're back.
Oh, I'm back. Oh, something happened with my connection. I'm sorry.
That's you.
Okay, are we good now? Can you guys see me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can see you.
But can you hear me?
Explain that again, what that would take. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. I can hear you. Not we. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm sorry. I can hear you. So.
Can you explain how in English you would translate the luamai?
Yes, absolutely. So, like I said, this form has a middle voice and the passive voice. They're identical in form. So, if you want to convey a middle voice action, it would be I loose or I destroy myself. Because the middle, again, it refers back to the subject, right? The action, the subject's acting upon itself, right? So I loose myself or I destroy myself. They destroy themselves. We destroy ourselves and so forth, okay? That's middle. The passive is when the subject is being acted upon. So in this case is I am being destroyed or I am being loosed. You are being loosed. We are being loosed and so forth. Okay? So you can translate it both ways because of the fact that this is for the middle voice as well as the passive voice.
How would you tell which is the right one, though?
I can say by ratio in the New Testament text, 9 out of 10 times, it'll be passive, but it can be either way. And the best way to discern which voice is used is the context of the text. But like I said, ratio-wise, by my experience, 9 out of 10 times, even maybe more than that, I think 19 out of 20 times, it'll be used as a passive. All right? Any other questions? Okay, so the next form I'm going to show you guys is the future active indicative form, okay? And that's in Greek. The future active indicative form, okay? And so let me just erase everything here, okay? Now I'm going to do it slightly different. Well, should I? No, I'll just do it the regular way. So step one, we're going to put all our forms down. We're going to get the stem, okay? And we're going to paste it in every box for the future active indicative, okay? Okay, now the next thing that I want to add after the stem, it's technically known as a tense suffix. It is technically known as a tense suffix. But what it is simply a sigma after the stem, okay? And that's an S. Sigma, okay? And this sigma occurs after the stem in every form, okay? So copy, paste, paste. So like I said, this is known as a tense suffix, okay? It is known as a tense suffix, and basically, it is also the biggest identifying marker for the future forms, the future active indicative, okay? Once we see the suffix at the end of the stem, this lets us know, oh, it's a future. It's totally a future, okay? And then after the tense suffix, then we add basically, and this makes it really easy, the present active indicative forms. All we need to do is add the present active indicative forms now, okay? So for the singular, it is omega, plural, not plural, excuse me, second, epsilon iota sigma, epsilon iota, plural, omicron mu, epsilon nu, epsilon tau epsilon, and last but certainly not least, omicron upsilon sigma iota. And that's a theta. Sorry about that. Bum-ba-da-bum. Santiago, you had your hand up, and then you don't have your hand up. Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah, I'll take it. Are you going to be available tomorrow? I'm calling tomorrow.
Am I going to do what tomorrow?
Are you going to be available tomorrow?
It depends what time. I'm here. I'll be technically done at, I'm hoping 4 o'clock my time, which is 6 o'clock your guys' time.
All right, so do you mind helping me out tomorrow about 6:30 or?
No, not at all. Not at all. I will write that down in my calendar. So 6:30, Santiago?
Yes.
All right. I got you, sir.
6:30 my time?
Your time?
Yeah, Central.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Who's talking now? I didn't catch that.
Santiago.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. So 6:30 your time tomorrow. That's correct.
Okay, I'll call you tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. Excellent.
Appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. Okay. So let's go over the future active indicative. Repeat after me if you wish. We'll do singular first. Luso. Luces. Luce. Lusamin. Lusamin. Lucete. And Lususi. Okay, so that is our future active indicative. The biggest clue, you guys, is this tense suffix right here. Okay, if you have a sigma following the stem and before the verb ending, that lets you know that that is a future. That lets you know that as is a future tense. Okay, luso, luces, luce, lusamin, lucete, lususi. So, okay. So very good, very good. The next one I'm going to show you guys is the future middle indicative. Not middle passive, okay, just middle, all right? And middle indicative, all right? So just like in the active where you use the present active indicative endings, I'm now going to use the present middle passive endings. That's all it is, okay? So for example, first person singular, it's Omicron, Mu, Alpha, Iota. It's Eta with the Iota subscript. Here we have Epsilon, Tau, Alpha, Iota. This one, Theta, Alpha. This one, Sigma, Theta, Epsilon. And then Nu, Tau, Alpha, Iota. Yes, sir.
Can you explain that the second?
I didn't hear that last part. I'm sorry. Which one?
The second person singular?
Yes, second person singular. Luce?
You see how, yeah, with the little symbol right there at the bottom? What do you call that?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the Iota subscript?
Yoda subscript.
Yeah.
I've got your name of it.
Okay, so just like our future active, all you have is that sigma, and then following after the sigma is your present active indicative. In this case, it's the same thing. We have the sigma, and then all we need to do is add the middle passive, present middle passive indicative form. Okay, so very, very simple, very simple. All you need to add is that sigma there. So one more time, the big clue for the future forms is that sigma after the stem. Okay, and then we're almost running out of time. So why don't we just read these forms, and then I'll tell you guys what I'm expecting you guys to do, and then we'll go for it from there. Okay. So first person singular is lusamai. Lusamai.
Lose my mind.
That's a great one. That's a good one. Very good. Very good.
Y'all gonna make me lose my mind. Oh yeah, I got it now. We can roll.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's good. That's good. I have to compose myself for a moment. All right. Let's all lose our minds together to the second singular, yes, which is luce.
Luce.
Luce. Good. Third is lusatai.
Lusatai.
Lusamatha, plural first.
Lusamatha.
Good. Lusamatha. Luceste.
Luceste.
Good. And lusantai.
Lusantai.
Good. Good. All right. So those are 4 indicative forms we went through. So congratulations. Well done. We'll try to finish up verbs next week because we also have a Greek exam the week after. So we're almost done with our Greek journey, believe it or not. And so that being said, you notice that I haven't updated your Smoodle yet. I haven't had time this week to update it. So hopefully by tomorrow I'll have everything updated. But basically what is required of you, you have the next vocabulary quiz, right, which I'll provide the vocabulary words for you. And may I remind always, you can retake it as many times as you want to get the grade that you want, okay, before the week is done. The second thing is you will have another Greek worksheet, okay, so I will definitely give you that one by Thursday. And then what else? And then also you have your final Greek passage reading. You have your final Greek passage reading. And it's actually going to be in the Septuagint. So we're going to do something from the Old Testament this time. Okay? So those are the 3 things that I'm expecting of you guys for next week. If is there any questions? Yes, Joseph, go ahead.
I was going to ask you, you'll see when you open my email of my worksheet, it was actually the one before you changed it.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
I'll have to give that to you next couple.
That's fine. That's fine. I thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. Any other questions? Okay. So, yes, someone has a question. I think Leanne?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Is there another way we can get the reading passages to you? Because my first one didn't want to upload at all.
Okay.
And I don't want to have the same problem with the second one.
Can you try sending it to me via email?
Sure.
And if because of it's technology's fault, which 9 out of 10 times I always blame technology and not myself. If you want, you can submit your first passage reading as well. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Tony De La Garza. Go ahead, sir.
Are you going to put your PowerPoint up on Smoodle?
I will. I will have my PowerPoint on Smoodle, and then also I will have this. Oh, I'm recording this. I shouldn't.